Hey guys, my name is Destination. Welcome to this Theorize on is Flowey actually depressed? And can he actually represent depression? And this is what we're going to be talking about. And I got this from Reddit. There was actually something about analyzing certain characters, and they actually go into detail of Flowey. And I'm basically gonna I was actually looking at this, but I'm gonna be talking about several key points that they have had, and they explain this so well that it was literally a page long. You can write a page about that, and it's not even including everything. So this is a very delicate discussion. I will be going into detail into it. So this is spoiler alert warning. If you do not want to be spoiled for Undertale, do not watch this at all. Everything's going to be spoiled for you. Everything. Every single thing. Also, another thing, if you're triggered by things like this, like talking of suicide and depression, I suggest you don't watch this either, because we're going to be discussing that, and I don't want anything to happen to you guys if you are easily triggered by that, which I know several people can be. So, let's get into this. Now, Flowey is literally the first character you meet into the underground. Like, when Frisk falls into the underground, he is the first character. So, thinking of him as kind of being an embodiment of depression is kind of hard to think about, because all you can think about with him is being a lying, tricky little son of a gun who just tricks you, and he's angry and stuff, just wants to kill everyone. You never really think that he can be depressed. But one of the biggest things that ties us together is Flowey lacking a soul. And because he's lacking a soul, he cannot feel true emotion. He can't feel anything. And that's expressed throughout the game multiple times. And that's something that a lot of people who have had depression, who has depression, describe it like not feeling anything. And that's what a lot of extreme depression happens. You can't feel anything. You can feel things that once were. And that's really difficult. Depression steals the capability to feel anything. It makes you numb to emotion. It only feeling the fringe of emotions you used to know. But when you experience huge amount of emotion so strong, it stirs distant memories of what you used to feel. And that can be very confusing. This happens if you try to mercy Flowey after the Omega Flowey fight. And he explains how he can't understand. He doesn't know how this feels. He doesn't know why they're doing it. And they want to call him an idiot, but at the same time, it's hard to understand how they're feeling, because he's feeling something totally different. And, that's shown explicitly through that one scene. And, of course, we all know that Flowey is Azrael, if you have ever played the Pacifist route. And so, with Flowey being Azrael, Azrael's mom is basically Toriel. It is Toriel. And Toriel is known for wanting to impose mercy. And of course, he was often had to have been raised to give mercy if someone didn't want to fight, or if you didn't have to fight. He was raised that way, especially being a prince of the underground. So he definitely knows what mercy is. He definitely knows what it is and how it feels to have someone care about them. So that's something. It's also learned that he has also, for multiple times, tried to commit suicide. And while that's brushed off several times, that we don't even think about it, and it doesn't come right out and say, oh, I committed suicide or tried to. And this even counts the times when he was trying to see if he is really in control of the timelines. And the first time, he's felt so numb, he felt hopeless, which is another sign of depression. But he's felt lack of so much hope. And he just tried offing himself, feeling that everyone was better off without him. And it didn't work. He ended up coming back. He wanted to live. And that's kind of like the second thoughts. It's like, and some people have that when they have depression. They're like, should I really do this? And, that's what really hits. And it's supported that he tried committing suicide when in the new home he says, I became despondent. I just wanted to love someone. I just wanted to care about someone. Char, you might not believe this, but I decided it wasn't worth living anymore. Not in the world without love. Not in the world without you. So, I decided to follow in your footsteps. I would erase myself from existence. And you know what? I succeeded. But as I left this mortal coil, I started to feel apprehensive. If you don't have a soul, what happens when something primal started to burn inside me? No, I thought. I don't want to die. Then I woke up, like it was all just a bad dream. And that's also something, like they said in the thing, that, like, depression transforms you. It turns you into something you hate, something you despise. And that's true for a lot of cases, because sometimes suicide is the outcome of some of these cases where they feel like that's the only way out, but then they have those second thoughts. Like, they start thinking, and they start thinking, and they start thinking. And Flowey is no different. At that time, you have to think, he lost his sibling. He also died, and he thought he was supposed to be dead, but he ended up turning into a flower who couldn't feel anything. And that's probably 10 times worse than actually being dead. It's like he's being punished for what he had done. And what he had done was, he knew about the plan that Char was going to commit. He knew that what they were trying to plan, and he was filled with so much guilt, that he couldn't handle it. And it's mind-boggling that, he felt so guilty over it, even though it wasn't his fault, that they probably would have done it either way. But after he dies, after he becomes Flowey, he feels no guilt, which is another symptom of depression, feeling no guilt, and also becoming really irritable and apathetic, which means that they start not to caring. They don't care about other emotions. They don't care about others' feelings. They start lacking interest. And that's what Flowey starts doing until, like, at the beginning, when he finds out that he has the reset power and he can reset, but it's tricky, and he goes back, he tries doing pacifist route, and then, he was like, what happens when I do this? What happens when I do that? And then it's just, he starts thinking this game boring, so he starts lacking interest in it. And that's something that is really tricky. Another thing about Flowey is and while this is very into detail, in his dialogue, he's often having those ellipses, which are the three dots, and especially after his most famous line, which is "you idiot." And at the beginning, it's just like "you idiot," and he's trying to think of what to say, and he's so lost into thought, and that's something that is very key. It's something that does happen a lot in the game. Now that I'm noticing it, especially in the genocide run, where he repeats the same thing over and over again, where he always repeats that he has the same goal. He has the same thing as Chara. They're wanting to commit the same thing. And it's almost like he's reassuring himself, or he can't think of anything else to say. Because, think of this, they're not really supposed to be alive. They're supposed to be dead. And this is something that, hasn't really gone through to him. Like, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to be dead. And it's incredible. But it turned Azrael into something that he hated. And he also talks about hating it and regretting it so bad in the end of the pacifist run, where, he regrets doing this. And you can also see it a little at the end of the genocide run, where he's explaining his story in New Home right before the final battle. But it's something that you start to see again. You start to see his guilt, and you start to see his regret. You start to see him getting interested, and that's what makes this theory so plausible. And it's how you can see it. And I know that a lot of people don't like it when you overanalyze characters, but all the signs are there. They're all there in the text. They're all there in every single mechanic. Even in the pacifist run, where this is most evident, and he becomes his true form, he talks about how they don't want them to leave. They don't want Frisk to leave, because that's when he started feeling like, if they leave, everyone who's ever shown him interest is already gone. And when Frisk started showing Flowey interest, when they started showing him that they cared and loved about him and loved him and stuff, at the end, when they're about to leave and go back to their home, it hurts Flowey, so he knows as Azrael that they need to stop them. And it's something that, we don't really think about, but they honestly believe that Frisk is Char. They honestly believe that they're the first human that ever fell down, which makes it 10 times worse, because if you think of it that way, while Flowey and Azrael do sound like they have their doubts about Frisk being their sibling, actually, it makes it 10 times worse, because it's like saying, all this is because they died. And that's probably why, they're depressed in the first place, is because, one, they're dead. They're supposed to be dead, and they can't feel anything. But most overall, that gives them a reason. A main reason is because of Chara's death, because their sibling died. And it's the one person they ever cared about. The one person who has never gotten tired of playing with him, who has always loved and cared for him. And that's something that really hurts, because that's when you realize a loss of a loved one is the most cause for depression. And that's just unbelievable. Another thing is, he has tried all the runs. He's tried genocide, neutral, and pacifist, just like we have, because he's basically tried everything, just to try to feel something. He hasn't felt anything, and he still felt nothing until they met us, the player, until they met Frisk, the human. Until they met us, he hasn't felt anything. And that's when he starts getting interest back. That's when, he starts showing more signs of becoming Asriel again and being Asriel. And that's just really heartwarming in a way that if you do the pacifist run, it's like his true form, is like, please don't go. And that's kind of like accepting that they are gone. And he even says, you're not really them, are you? And that's basically his way of trying to ask Frisk, trying to confirm that they're actually gone. And, that also goes along with the stages of grief as well. And that's sad, that's heartbreaking, and it makes sense. Like, I'm like, at first, can Flowey really be depressed? Are you serious? But like, after doing the research, I'm just like, oh my god, that makes a lot of sense. And that's why he's so hostile in the game. That's why he is the person that he is in the game, and then he ends up being Asriel. And another thing to point out, and I've been rambling this whole time, so excuse me if I point this out, but like, the only way that Flowey becomes Asriel again, like truly Asriel, like the little kid form, the cute little goat, the only way he turns back to that is when he has all the souls. When he has everyone's souls and becomes his true form, and then he turns back after realizing that, they have to go. His sibling has to go, Frisk has to go. And Frisk even tries saving them, which can even be a way of, and a lot of people, including myself, actually thought of it as a way to save them from what they endured, from their death. But it could be a way of trying to save them from their depression and how they're feeling, and trying to save them from becoming Flowey, from becoming that depressed, hollow shell that can't feel a thing because they don't have a soul. And, that's actually really, that's sad to me. And, Flowey does all this. He does everything that he does in the game just to become himself again. And if you really think about it, that is really deep. Like, I'm talking to myself right now. Of course, I'm talking to you guys, but like, I was talking to myself a while ago for recording this. And it does make sense as soon as I talk about it out loud. He can have depression. He probably does have depression at the time of the game, and even before. I mean, all the signs are there. And he's only seen as hostile throughout the game. All his motives and actions are so he can gain something. And that's awful, and it makes so much more sense. And now that we see that, now that I've seen that, it makes 10 times more sense. And it makes Flowey, definitely up there on my list of favorite characters, right next to Sans. So, do I believe it? Yes. I believe that this can be true. You don't have to believe it, but this is my theory. You don't have to believe that Flowey has depression or anything, but this is my theory, and I would like to thank you guys for watching this all the way through. Please comment down below what you believe, and I'll see you in the next video.